Welcome to Hashtag General, everybody. I am your host, Logan Steedley, and joining me, as always, is the other host, or also a host, or we should probably figure out how I should do my intros at some point, Chris Hakamura.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, Chris?
Not bad. It's been a crazy week.
Yeah, what have you been up to that isn't Cyberpunk related?
Mainly recovering because I had that wisdom tooth
Yeah,
surgery.
how did that go?
It was fine. I mean, it was really quick. I had a good surgeon, doctor guy that, took care of me. Uh, but, it was the thing of I didn't expect it to take me out for as long as it did. And then I had it the day Cyberpunk came out. So all my thing was like, oh, like I'll have I'll just be laying there and I can play Cyberpunk because I'm playing it on console.
Oh,
I'm playing on Xbox Series X, and then so I haven't had issues. We can get into it, but I haven't had issues.
yeah.
But
We got a whole topic around Cyberpunk.
yeah, but that day, I don't. I remember it's so funny. I remember the doctor. I was in the doctor's office in Burbank, and I was he's like, all right, cool. We're gonna do this, 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 and this. We're gonna hook this up, put this in the nose. I was like, all right, cool. How is this gonna? And then the next thing I remember is I woke up in bed and my mouth hurt, and I had like everything hurt, and I was like, what happened?
yeah.
And so yeah, I didn't play any Cyberpunk for like a few days, and then I finally got into it and like really went to town.
Yeah, cool. I've been like I told you, I haven't played too much Cyberpunk. I've been I think if I haven't been reading, I've been watching Mandalorian or like some other TV show or playing Fortnite because that's kind of become the go-to game for game group right now. Um and I picked up Brandon Sanderson, who writes like Stormlight Archive and Mistborn. His latest book had come out, and I didn't know it until I think Monday, and it had been out for like a month already. And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna read it," and that basically ate up my entire week. All of my free time was reading that book, so I am woefully like. You'd think I'd be further along in Cyberpunk than I am. Because you were even when we were talking before the show, you were kind of surprised at how far I wasn't. So
Yeah, I mean, not surprised, but like it's pretty. Uh, so I don't think this is spoilers because everyone's seen it at this
yeah.
point.
Hey James, why don't we
You
just say we're in
are
games now? Let's just say we're in games. Woohoo, games.
you are uh in the
I'm in
intermission
I'm in the
still.
intro
Like,
missions.
yeah, so the world hasn't opened up for you yet. Once you well, the full scope of the game hasn't opened up yet. So like there's still a lot of stuff that you can't do. I guess you could technically, but you haven't seen the this title screen.
No,
So
I have
like
not seen the
after
title screen.
yeah, so like there's just stuff that you're not gonna be able to get. Like there's parts of the game that won't open up to you until you beat that opening mission. Um, so yeah, super interesting there. But
Yeah,
yeah, the end of that opening mission is such a trip because the the story of the game opens up to you then of like,
yeah,
oh, this is the story.
yeah. No, I got the sense that everything right now is just leading up to the actual inciting incident of the game. Like everything right now is still kind of just like laying the foundations of what's going to happen through the story. So I don't at all feel like I don't think I've made too much headway into it. I'm enjoying it. I think that's the big thing is I've
Yeah,
enjoyed what I have played. I really actually do like how they're telling their narrative. It doesn't feel like how video games have handled narratives much in the past. Like my immediate analogy would be to GTA. For a game like this one definitely has more of the role playing element.
Hmm.
So I'm really enjoying how they're telling the story. But yeah, I think the big thing though, beyond the fact that I know you and I are both are enjoying it, like have you run into any issues? You're saying you're on console. I'm of course playing it on my crazy new computer, but
Which
it seems
probably
like
looks
that's what.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I haven't had any major issues. Like I've had the occasional bug, but it's
Yeah.
not, the thing about it is that with bugs like with game like Cyberpunk, I treat like I treat Skyrim or Fallout where I'm like, this is gonna have some weird bugs in it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
I've had stuff where like the item pop up won't go away, so I just reload, or like my gun will disappear sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that's fine. I just reload, and
yeah,
then you
I
know I've had some floating bodies after I kill them. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that,
yeah,
where it's
stuff
like,
where you're
okay, these
like
aren't game breaking.
they're not game breaking. They're obviously the game has just gone out into the world and there's no way they can catch everything in playtesting. And so it's I always feel like the first day of a game release, like I give a lot of bugs kind of a pass because I figure it's like, you know what, there's a good chance that they never encountered this in QA. Because I know I run into things where it didn't really seem like a bug, but it just was more like, oh, they should probably fix this. Like uh the mirror
Yes,
in
sir.
the apartment, as silly as that sounds, I went to
Okay.
change what I was wearing and I was like, I wonder how this actually looks because you don't really have in their inventory screen like a good this is how you look like view, or at least none that I could find quickly. And so I was like, oh, well, there's a mirror in the apartment. I'll just go over there. And for some odd reason, that mirror decided every time I looked into it, I'd be naked. And I was just like, well, that completely defeats the purpose of what I was trying to do. But you know
Yeah,
what? I'm sure I'm probably triggered something in that sequence that they didn't like where no one had done it in that order or something and that's why it's happening. I'm like, you know what, that's probably what it is. Or there was another instance where I was on my way to Lizzie's bar for the intro quest and I happened to run across one of those instances where you can run into like NPCs holding up like another NPC, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'm right here, I have a gun, let's Good Samaritan my way through this sequence. Let's just do it. And like it obviously bugged out because one of the people, the person who was initially being attacked by the other NPCs, never left like their huddled over mode even after
hmm,
combat ended. And so it was kind of just like, okay, everything's stuck. But that's like the extent of the bugginess I found. Like there was no like this game is unplayable issue the way I've seen a lot of
right,
people talk about it online. And because on my computer it's gorgeous. And I'm
yeah,
running into what I would call like day one bugs, nothing that I would call, that I would say
yeah,
makes it unplayable.
yeah. I think it's again, it's very much at your own. Uh, your case may vary, and
Hmm.
so like I've been lucky that I haven't had any issues. I've had friends that have had tons of issues, but I haven't had too many. I think the thing about the game is like, and you'll experience this probably the next episode. We will
Yeah, we'll have to
talk
dive
about it,
deeper.
but like the as once you'll get to a certain point where you're just like, oh, I know what this game is, and like once it has its hooks in you, it's incredible.
Yeah. Like I haven't had anything that's disincentivized me from playing as much as other things caught my attention, and I was just like, you know
Right.
what, I have the holiday coming up to where I'm gonna have a lot of downtime, and that's gonna be perfect because instead of trying to cram in 2 hours of gameplay each night or whatever I can be like, you know what, I'll make a day of it or for a couple days
Yeah.
when I have the time off instead of trying to make a whole like cram it in wherever I can with the goal of like finishing it. So it's kind of
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like rushing to finish,
yeah.
but it is a thing where it's like, cool, I'm playing for a couple hours a night, and like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, where's this world gonna take me today? And
Yeah.
I'm not even like rushing through story stuff, but it's just like you said, like you're walking around the city and you're like, oh, I can take care of this right now, or like, oh, I have a gig that I can do that's right here, like let me just do
Yeah.
this. And the thing that's amazing is like the side quests are sometimes in a lot of cases more interesting than the main quest. And so like yeah, you can run into like a random side mission and go like, "Oh, this is awesome." And it takes you all night. And you're like, "That was great."
I've
That
read
came out of nowhere.
I
Like,
read somewhere that what they did for a lot of the side missions, they were often originally designed to be integrated into the main mission, and then as they developed the story, they realized that mission no longer worked in the
yeah.
main, and they were like, well, but it was still good, so they kept it. So a lot of these side quests evidently are like just quests that got dropped from the main one because it didn't fit the narrative, not because the quest was bad.
Yeah. And it shows because they're incredible. And like there's so much it does so much world building and it does so much for it where it's like, man, this is insane. This is insane that this thing is a 2 to 3 hour ordeal that people could just miss. Like
Yeah,
it's way too good for people to not do this.
yeah, I don't want to shotgun my way through this game, and that's just with my brief glimpse into it. And I think what the problem really for CD Projekt Red is this game runs amazing on the recently
Crunch
launched
hardware.
consoles on PCs if they're higher end, but it's just like if you're running an old like the last gen Xbox or PlayStation, it's not apparently up to snuff. And it's crazy to watch as all the goodwill that CD Projekt Red built up after Witcher 3 just seemed to evaporate in the space of a week.
Yeah, again, I think it's because of the expectations of this.
Yeah. And I've
And
seen a couple
so,
people argue that what they should have done was do PC launch first and then consoles like 6 months later. Um, there's also been stuff coming out that the over the past 2 weeks, it's like more stories just broke. It was like the dam broke to where when we first talk about them doing crunch, and it to us it was just like that just sounds like the last few months prior to release, but evidently some sources were saying that no, they'd actually been in crunch mode since last year.
yeah.
And so it just was like a lot like you there the cracks in their pristine look at us, we're CD Project Red, we do it right, just basically all were became glaringly obvious to where kept thinking back about how when you and I first were talking about Cyberpunk, the idea of it being a 2020 release was not at all what we expected.
Yeah.
Like you and I were talking like 2021 was our like optimistic, like we thought it would be like 2022. And so I just was thinking about that going, man, if they had done that, I don't think they would be running into as many problems now because it just seems like no one has bringing up issues with like the game's story being bad. It's all just the console
It's the little stuff.
launch. Yeah, it's all the little things. Like the console launch was not up to stuff with the older gen, but they weren't ready to launch the next gen version of it. So it just is kind of they created a mess for themselves.
I mean,
And
like, it's the same thing that kind of happened with Avengers too. It's
mhm,
the same problem Avengers is running into where the game shouldn't have come out on the older consoles. And it's like, okay, if they just prioritize and optimize for next gen and
yeah,
for PC, none of this would have been an issue. But like, and again, if it came out in 2021, I don't think they would have had this issue just
no,
because they wouldn't have they probably wouldn't have prioritized older gen consoles anyway.
Yeah, no one would have
Um,
expected an older gen console at that point. They were. It feels like they were trying to do the GTA 5 approach,
yeah,
where they were coming out at the very end of the last gen. So it was basically pushing the last generation console to its absolute limit. Heck,
yeah,
GTA 5 still pushes PC hardware, because of course it has more advanced features than the console version, but it's still like kind of a feat that my new system can run like max GTA 5 and hit for the like 60 frames a second. That's kind of crazy to think about, that game PC wise is already what, 5 years old, and it only now can I turn on everything to max. It's just it's like they wanted to do that with this current gen or last gen console, and they didn't do the work for it.
yeah.
But the ray tracing is pretty.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful game.
It's a beautiful looking game.
Yeah. I just feel bad that like people are having such a bad experience because
Hmm.
again, like I think it's the game isn't the industry changing masterpiece that we thought it was going to be, but I think those expectations were pretty high. Um, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's still incredible. It doesn't take away that it's incredible. It's just not what people expected because people expected this, again, this game changing, like never before seen piece of art, and it's not that. But again, I don't think that was fair to assume in the first place.
yeah. They can't feel good watching as Sony takes them off the PlayStation Store, how Microsoft and Sony and now even Best Buy are accepting refunds.
Yeah,
It is
it's
like
not good.
it's not a good look. I can't imagine that it's a fun day in Poland. Um, but yeah, and that was the thing that I found so weird because I loaded it up, I played it, I was enjoying it. I know our friend, and sometimes on the show, uh, host Charles, he got it and was enjoying it because he bought my old game, my old computer, and so he was running it on that PC and was enjoying it. And
Hmm.
it wasn't until I happened to poke over to like Reddit r/cyberpunk, because I had a was like, I wonder if anyone has like a crafting breakdown, because I was just like, I remembered from when I had first tried going through Witcher 3, finding the crafting system kind of like hard to get a hold of quickly. So it's like, I wonder if there's already a guide for crafting in Cyberpunk. And then I go there and I see all of the conversation about how this is the worst game ever. And I'm just like, wait, what the hell just happened? That was not at all what I expected when I went into the subreddit
Yeah,
after playing the game. I was
I've
just kind of
avoided it at all
floored.
costs.
Yeah. Um, and I was just like, oh, I have a feeling that this is going to be a very toxic room now, and I don't want to be here. But that was my first inclination that something had been wrong, because like, honestly, playing it on my system, yeah, like we said, I found a bug here and there, but it wasn't unplayable. So it
Right.
just was kind of like, it shocked me, honestly, to hear everyone talking about it. And it wasn't until like I read more into it that I was like, oh, they botched the console launch. And it's like, ugh, that's just, yeah. That said, I'm looking forward to playing it the next few weeks. So,
Yeah, it's
but
you'll know. You'll hit a point where you're like, oh, I just want to play this all the time. And
yeah.
it's not even like going through the missions and like the story and stuff like that. Like story will hook you, but it's the thing. When the world opens up and you start to go around, you start to get the influx of like it's a little overwhelming because it's the thing of like when the world opens up, you'll start getting your phone will start blowing up and you'll start to get calls, and then you go, oh, I have 30 things that I can do.
Oh, God.
And you're like, oh,
what do I do first? And then, it's a little overwhelming, but like once you understand that like, oh, we can like I don't need to do any of this. It's just all
I can
at
choose
my
what I
own
do.
this is own my own discretion. I'm like, you're like, oh, okay, great. But yeah, it's pretty good. That it I'm very excited
Yeah, and
about worse
and
about getting through more of it.
and my big thing is I can't I don't know about the console side of things, but I do think that a lot of like this bugs and issues, I think they're going to get fixed. So I'm not joining the refund my game bandwagon anytime soon.
No, no. But again, I haven't had issues, so like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
I
judge people for
yeah,
getting
I
doing that
don't
because
I will not judge people who are like I opened it up, I threw it in my Xbox and it just is having issues. I don't blame them at all if they want to follow through with a refund. And it could be one of those cases where they might do the thing where I've often done with some games where I'm interested but not interested enough to buy them at launch. It might be one of those cases where they'll pick up this like next year when it's on sale on Steam. Like it's then again, that worked well for CD Projekt Red in the past with Witcher. So it could be that this is the footnote on the history of the game rather than the story of the game, which hopefully is the
this is
case
gonna hurt
because
them. This is
it's
gonna
gonna
hurt them in
hurt.
the long run, though.
It's going to hurt them. This is Battlefront 2 level hurt, I think. So I could hope that they recover, but I think this could easily be like Battlefront 2 where it's just like the narrative is already written and you can't undo it no matter how you fix it
Right.
because the ship has sailed. So we'll see how that plays out. But let's move on to movies as we go through a gauntlet of Disney Investor Day. Like was telling you, Chris, before we started recording, I was expecting this episode to be nothing but Cyberpunk and the Mandalorian, and then Disney Investor Day happened, and I was just like, oh god.
But luckily, they didn't really go too in depth, and
Yeah, they
like
didn't
these are
go
all
in
things that were
depth.
rumored anyway,
Yeah.
so we can just kind of like blast through
So
them.
let's just blast through them. First one, these are not into our normal buckets. I'm excited. That Raya and the Last Dragon is going to Disney Plus. I think it's been a smart move how Disney has handled a lot of their animated stuff. I don't remember if this one's getting like their premiere thing, but like Soul is coming out. It would be what, Friday,
Christmas,
Christmas Day,
I think
and they're
Christmas Day.
not hiding it behind the premiere branding. Like
Yeah,
it's gonna just be free, and it like they're gonna do that with Raya and the Last Dragon, and I'm looking forward to that. Lightyear was something I was kind of caught off guard of. Did you ever? You might have heard rumors of this. I hadn't heard rumored that they were doing a essentially Buzz Lightyear movie that's about like the fictional character that the toy is based off of.
yeah. I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing that we saw with the Buzz Lightyear cartoon that I watched when I was little.
Yeah,
So like, have you seen that cartoon by the way?
I've seen bits of it. It's
So yeah, it's the same story there. I was more surprised at the Chris Evans thing.
right. That did catch me off guard.
Uh, uh
Is like just Tim Allen not available, or were they wanting to like create a more like
I think
obvious
they,
delineation?
yeah, I think it was more a thing of like, cool, that's the Toy Story, and then this is Buzz Lightyear. This is like the real Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah,
I think that's more the distinction. But yeah, it's super cool. I think it's exciting. Uh, I'm super excited for the Enchanted sequel,
yeah.
the Disenchanted, I think they're calling it, which is super exciting. I love that movie. Uh, I think that movie's super underrated and people forget about it.
Oh God, it's it's there was a lot on Disney's just general slate that I was kind of excited about. And it seems like I think big general thing is that they are embracing more wholeheartedly Disney Plus. I think Disney Plus was already proving itself a success pre-pandemic, but I think the pandemic really just hammered it home that this is, kind of the wave of the future for releasing
Yeah.
even but then again, that kind of retreads some stuff I've said in the past about how this is for Disney. This is replacing their home video launch. Like I think it's only a matter of time before we stop seeing Blu-rays. But yeah, let's move on because I know we have more to talk about with Marvel.
Yeah.
Because we got trailers for Loki, WandaVision, and the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And WandaVision, I'm really interested in. It looks like it's going to be a trip. Hi, Sam.
Yeah, I'm super excited for WandaVision.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of Loki.
Yeah, I'm super excited for WandaVision. I think that's going to be the most fascinating of the shows, and I'm interested to see how the direction they take in terms of tone,
Yeah.
because it's going to set the tone for all the TV shows, right?
Well, I wonder if it's going to set the tone for all of the TV shows, or because a lot of the way the trailers play, they're definitely playing up I think the comedy aspect of it, of her imagination, because she's living in the sitcom. Whoop. I think we may have just lost Chris.
Hello?
Hello.
He's back.
Welcome back.
Okay, there you go. My bad. What's
No
going on?
problem. Yeah, no, I was just saying that I felt like the trailers were playing up a lot of the comedic aspects of her, I'm living life in a sitcom. And this last trailer really hammered home how twisted it was. So I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out. I don't know if that's going to be the best way to say that it's... I'm wondering if that idea is going to make it different enough that we can't say this is the way everything's going to go in the future. But yeah, I think it's definitely a good first foray into TV.
Yeah, and I think people that know the comic book, like we've been talking about, is understand how fucked up and this story is that they're telling. And I think that it's going to be so interesting to see how that translates to TV, and it's interesting how, I don't know if you guys got this part before I cut off, but it's an interesting thing to look at of, this is the first Marvel show. This is going to set the tone for where they're going with all this TV stuff. And I think it's interesting for them to set the tone.
I wonder if it's
Falcon
less that
Soldier,
it's TV and more I think you just hit it with Winter Soldier, where I think it's going to be more of this is setting the tone for the next phase of Marvel, because we've already seen major hints about just all sorts of multiverse shenanigans.
Yeah, but I think the thing is with Falcon Winter Soldier, that was supposed to be the first show, right? That was the first show on the slate. And the first movie was obviously Black Widow. So when you look at Black Widow and Falcon Winter Soldier, those are supposed to be the first two big things of Phase 4. And so when you look at it, those two shows are those two pieces are pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what we expect from MCU and what we expect from...
They're the traditional ones.
Yeah, they're very traditional. All right, cool, these are action set pieces. They're spy stuff, which you've seen before. All this stuff we've seen. Where WandaVision is very much this psychosomatic deep dive into despair, which is something we've totally not explored.
Yeah, no, it's
super interesting.
It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle it. Because it's almost I remember reading back when Iron Man 2 came out that one of the things where Favreau was having issues was he really wanted to dive into the idea behind Genie in a Bottle, where Tony Stark is dealing with his alcoholism, and he had to tone it down at Marvel's insistence, and I wonder how much of that is like Perlmutter, but yeah, it feels like WandaVision isn't going to shy away from the fact that she's kind of having a psychotic break.
Right.
And then on top of that, on the movie side of things, it just feels like in the past week or two, it was like the dam broke on Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing stuff for a while.
Yeah, we've been hearing it for a while, but it was almost like all of a sudden it went from being like rumors, like, oh yeah, they're talking about maybe bringing in all the other bringing in,
Yeah, to like, oh yeah, this is happening. Like,
to yeah, all this is happening because they're like, oh yeah, he's Alfred Molina's reprising Doc Ock, and it's just like, wait, what? Wait,
yeah,
what? And then you just keep reading
William,
about everything going on, and you're like, oh,
you're like,
this
William
one,
Dafoe is back, Emma
yeah,
Stone is back,
it's like,
Kirsten
oh,
Dunst is back, and you're like, oh,
it's just like it's just like they just ripped off the Band-Aid. There's no secret anymore. They're doing a full on Spider-Verse shenanigans.
and I'm super excited for it. The thing is that, so the rumor is that Spider-Verse is the second film in a multiverse trilogy, is the rumor that's going around.
Yeah, I can believe
so,
that. Like, Widow is setting up, or not Widow, WandaVision is setting up some like potential problems because it's supposed to tie in to the next Doctor Strange, which is supposed to tie into the next Spider-Man. It's just like there's going to be some multiverse problems.
Yeah.
Going out throughout this fourth phase. But then there's also was the confirmation that there is going to be a Fantastic Four movie.
Tom Watts.
With Tom Watts. Then there's Secret Invasion as a television. Like, basically everything they announced on the Marvel side of things. Like, I saw all the Star Wars stuff first just because that just happened to be how it hit me.
Sure.
To where I was like, oh man, all the Star Wars stuff. And then I saw all the Marvel stuff and I was just like, if I'm any other platform trying to launch my streaming service right now, I am literally freaking out.
Terrified.
Because it's, and I think you and I both said this, that Disney was putting itself in a position where they could upseat Netflix as the default streaming service. And then I was seeing all this stuff and I was just like, no, I think they may have pulled it off. It's not quite ready to do it, but once these shows start hitting the network, essentially, there's a lot on there I want to watch. Yeah. I'll keep Netflix around, definitely, but it's kind of in my brain, it's switching from this is the one I am always going to keep to this is the one where if I have to like slim down, I'm getting rid of Netflix and I'm keeping Disney Plus.
Yeah. The thing is like, it's the war chest, right? It's the Disney war chest. Technically, they could do. Netflix would have a hard time just competing with Disney, just the Disney branding itself,
yes.
Right? So like the princesses and Pixar and stuff like that, right? Like just what you think of as Disney, and then you add on to it the Star Wars and the Marvel and everything else. Like no one else in the industry can compete.
Yeah,
and even come close.
And I know we've talked about this before, but how many people have talked about how if they have children like Sam's age, Disney Plus is kind of essential now. Because that's all of the shows or all of the movies that your kids want to watch, and it's there and it's easy for them to access. And they also have stuff that you as an adult want, like Marvel and Star Wars. Like Disney's kind of nailed it. And if you are like me and you get the bundle...
Them getting Hamilton was huge, too.
Hamilton was... Good God, I need to watch that again. Like, Hamilton is fantastic.
But them getting that was such a huge get. And such a huge, like...
Here's the thing that I think it shows how Disney... This could almost be, like, pre-set what we just saw with the Disney Investor Day. Kind of was being teased with how Hamilton was handled. Because they had bought the rights to Hamilton before the lockdown.
Yeah. And
And
then they just
then
rushed it out.
they rush it out. In fact, I know I've shared this on the show before. Lin-Manuel Miranda was apologizing to people on Twitter because they were like, "Why hasn't this been translated?" And he's like, "Because normally we would have had another year and a half to work on it, but we wanted to get it out because I think he knew and Disney knew like this is like we all need stuff like this right now." And I think it was perfect because it showed that when Disney launches something that they can still kind of hit the cultural zeitgeist. And I would make an argument too to kind of go on a tangent. Think it was Polygon or The Verge, but they had a thing where they argued that because pulp culture, like 2020, kind of had like this weird like empty zone because there had been no Marvel movie because Black Widow got pushed. And my counter argument would be, yeah, we lost out on the Marvel side of pop culture, but I don't think we had a void. And a lot of that was filled by, ironically, Disney. With Mandalorian, definitely has had pop cultural, like, big pop cultural impact.
I would argue,
and then
I would
Hamilton
agree,
too.
I would tend to agree with Verge more so than like I agree with you that like there are moments of pop culture, but I think like as a whole, there definitely was a void because like there was a point in time like now we have Mandalorian, but like Mandalorian was only the last 2 months.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There was definitely pockets of 2020 where there was nothing.
Like this summer, there was nothing.
And I don't want to
like,
throw that and say that that's...
We got Queen's Gambit, Mandalorian in the last like couple months, which have been sort of like filling the void, right? But it took a couple months. So like,
I think that they pushed it by saying it's all a lack of Marvel. I think it's literally just like film.
It's just a lack of everything.
Yeah, it's a lack of everything. Like film culturally had a very rough year. But that doesn't mean that it was like there was no pop culture or stuff. It's just like our systems of making and consuming that content changed so drastically that our normal way of approaching it got upended. And so that meant things that we would have normally have had in our pop culture space were just not there. But yeah, it's to kind of tie it back into Marvel. I think as much as we can talk about 2020 being the year without Marvel, like, Thanos snapped a little too hard. It's
so this is the fun. So before we move on, the thing I want to point out that's hilarious to me was we heard forever that Marvel's first choice to play Kate Bishop was Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
And so we knew they were waiting. We knew that was why the show was delayed. We knew that was why they were delaying filming. That was a pretty open, I feel like pretty open secret.
Yeah.
And so
in fact, when they announced the casting, I was just like, wait, wasn't this already done?
Well, so that's what was funny was they were
Chris, did we
like filming and
sorry, you cut out.
We had heard like, oh, hey, she signed, cool, great. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Now? Okay, great. So it's so funny because there's a thing of, oh, cool, she signed, like, great, and all those articles came out of like it's official, blah blah blah, and Marvel never made an announcement about it. And so then when the set photos come out, because usually when you hear rumors like this, and like you don't see set photos of this rumor, and like they always officially announce it before you start to see set photos.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden these are like, hey, set photos from Hawkeye, and it's Haley Steinfeld with a bow and arrow and purple outfit, and you're like, wait, they didn't even announce this yet. Hold on. And then finally Investor Day happens, and they go, Haley Steinfeld playing Kate Bishop, and I was like,
we know.
No shit, like everyone.
Like that, because I had this interaction. I'm like, wait, this is news.
Yeah, it was funny because it was a thing of like, wow, guys, kind of late to the table on this one. Like,
Oh no,
And
it's
so I was laughing so hard. I was just like, because that was the Disney Investor Day. It happened while I was comatose. It was the day that I had my surgery. So I was
oh
laying in bed. So I was laying in bed watching it, and I was like, when they announced it, I was sitting there, and I was like, I could have swore they already announced this.
am
I
I
was like,
that like is it the meds?
yeah, I was like, is it me that they just never announced? Like and so I had to go back and look for it, and I was like, oh yeah, these leaked set photos happened, but they didn't announce it. I
Oh
was like, oh
god.
well, cool.
No,
But
it's
yeah, her officially being a part of that Hawkeye show, I am even more excited now for that Hawkeye show. So,
yeah, I think it's
um, now are
I
you
think
are you still lukewarm on Hawkeye? I remember we were talking about
you
this
had me
earlier.
read or told me to read I
That
forget the
Fraction run, right?
yeah, and
Yeah,
I don't know if I read all of the run. I read what I was able to get on like the free Comixology subscription. Ooh,
yeah,
I signed up for Marvel Unlimited for a bit to get caught up on Star Wars. I bet I can finish it if I haven't already. But I was really enjoying it.
yeah.
Like reading that made
It's
me get excited for the Hawkeye show.
it's a really good run, and you can tell by the art style and by the way that they're doing the key art for the show that it is a direct
Yeah,
influence of it.
because one of the things I found interesting is like the book, oh, like those comic run almost kind of acknowledges the idea that Hawkeye is the Avenger. Everyone's like, "How are you an Avenger?" And even he's like, "How am I an Avenger?" But you also
Yeah,
realize like he's just actually he got to the level he's at because he's good at what he does.
yeah,
And it's just like he's not necessarily like Iron Man or Hulk, where it's very obvious what they bring to a fight. Hawkeye is not necessarily there to be the heavy hitter.
right.
But yeah, no, I'm interested to see how they handle that. Like, and like I was about to say, like as much as 2020 might have been a year without Marvel, 2021 is shaping up to be a very interesting year. So keep up that Disney Plus subscription, everyone. Let's hit
Yeah, I'm
Star
excited.
Wars now, because it also, as part of our Disney Investor Day on Extravaganza, had a ton of announcements that got me excited. So first, at the top of my little bullet list is we're getting an official confirmed Rogue Squadron movie, which is not at all. It was on my like if I had a Star Wars wish list of things that I would have loved to see but never thought would ever see, Rogue Squadron is on that list.
Yes.
And the Patty Jenkins, like, it's just like there's so many things on there that I just was like, I got excited. You know that they're getting ready to just go into production still, so it's still in the early phases, but it's just like there's a lot to be excited about, which is
So
the Rogue
what?
Squadron
So when
movie.
you look when you look at all of this stuff,
Hold
what
on,
is
because you got really roboty.
what is like your top three things
Oh God.
you're looking at that you're like I want it. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Is
can
it
hear you.
better?
I
Is
heard
it
what the
better?
question was. It stopped roboting enough for me to pick it out. But you're fine
Okay.
now. Top three. Honestly, I think that I'll just say the one thing that will probably surprise you. Obi-Wan Kenobi is not on my top three. Now.
Wow. Look at you.
Um, Mainly because I'm really excited about Kenobi, but I think the big thing for me is the Acolyte
Okay.
because that is set in the High Republic era, which we're only
Hmm.
going to start getting stuff for next month. And they're
Yeah.
already announcing a show for it. So, as much as we know very little about it, like to the point of being non existent, one of the reasons it's on my top three of, oh God, I can't wait, is because this is going to be the first piece of Star Wars that most people will be watching or seeing or interacting with that is set outside of the main saga period. Because yes,
Right.
there's a lot of Star Wars fans who have gone into Old Republic era with like Revan and like those games, but for a lot of people, Star Wars has never left like the prequels, the original trilogy, and now the sequel trilogy. It's always been within this time frame.
Right.
So the fact that they are doing High Republic was already a big deal, but the fact they're already doing a TV show set in that time period, just it opens up so many possibilities to where it's not that the show itself, even though it's being handled by the person who did Russian Doll, so I'm sure it's going to be a trip. But and so there's again a lot to be excited about. I think a lot of the reason why Acolyte's on my list of 3 would be what it represents in terms of the future of Star Wars. And then I kind of, as much as Rogue Squadron is in my things I would love to see and wasn't expecting to ever see list of the stuff announced, I think it's also kind of like Kenobi in that sense, where it's one of the reasons I hate doing lists like this oftentimes is it makes it seem like don't like something or I'm not interested, when the truth is I'm interested in all of it. I want to watch all of it. But if I was like what you said, like what were the 3, the thing with Rogue Squadron is I kind of already know what it's going to be on some level, just because if you're doing a Rogue Squadron movie, it's going to be, I guess the quick, fast way of explaining it is going to be something along the lines of Top Gun and Star Wars.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Really excited about it. To be totally blunt, if 4 years ago I somehow had been in a room with Kathy Kennedy and was told, okay, you have 5 seconds, pitch, go now, I'd have been like, Top Gun and Star Wars. That would have been my pitch. So I'm clearly, obviously in line with that. But again, for me, a lot of what I appeals to is it either is continuing a story that I'm invested in or it's exploring a part of Star Wars we haven't gone into. And the part of Star Wars we haven't gone into is covered by Acolyte. But Ahsoka, and I'm kind of lumping in Rangers of the New Republic in kind of as one, because who knows how those two are going to delineate, or what they're going to handle. But Ahsoka is one of those characters who's become so integral to what I see in Star Wars. As much as she's always been kind of on the sidelines, like, I'm looking forward to getting resolution on Ezra and Thrawn and all that, to where like Ahsoka is a story that we've been wanting to learn more about because we just have a lot of question marks. Whereas something like Kenobi, it's not that we have a lot of question marks so much as we kind of were like, the tales of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the comic run I love them. I'm interested in seeing a story there, but I've already seen stories there. I don't know the story of Ahsoka after Return of the Jedi. Other than she's still trying to find Thrawn and therefore probably still trying to find Ezra. And so that's why Ahsoka would be on there. And then Andor is also probably one of those ones that's on my list because I think here's the potential to where we can see a bit of the darker side of Star Wars. Like we saw hints of it in Rogue One. And I think Andor could add like a bit more depth to that time period, because you have Rebels, which is very much in the traditional Star Wars sense, where it is very, I don't want to call it safe, but it's kid friendly. It doesn't delve too deep into the darkness. Whereas Cassian Andor, the first time we see him, he shoots someone in the back. And I'm interested to see that in Star Wars. I'm interested to see, and this is what I hope we can see with having this more expanded Star Wars base that isn't just movies, is we can have a darker Star Wars show, and I kind of want to see how that's handled. And so those are probably the 3 that right now I am most interested in. But like I said, I would consider Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic kind of one lump, because I'm not sure. There's so many questions like, what's the Jedi Order like in this time period? So then there's like that, because the thing with Rangers of the New Republic is there's so many question marks about the New Republic in this time period, even still, even though we know a lot more than we did when The Force Awakens came out. I don't know what that show really is, to where I
Yeah.
can't sit there and say, oh, I'm excited about it because of this. Because I'm just like, I'm not sure how much of the story I'm expecting in Ahsoka is going to be the Ahsoka story and how much of it might actually be the Rangers of the New Republic story. I really don't know.
Right.
Because the thing with Thrawn, to go into my deep thought over what I'm expecting to have happen, because they've said that Rangers of the Republic, Ahsoka, and Mandalorian all kind of sit in the same space.
Right.
I think that Thrawn tease, I think Thrawn is going to be the big bad of all 3 series. That's my current guess.
That could be really cool.
Because it makes sense if you get into the character of Thrawn. Cold, calculating, like, master strategist. You only really beat him by doing or having something that he has not taken into account or that he can't accurately assess, like the Force. The Force is what has stopped Thrawn the 2 times he's been stopped. It has been things beyond his understanding because the Force is, the Force. It's going to do whatever it wants.
Right.
Like, who is going to think that there's going to be a Force monster on the planet you're attacking? Or that this Jedi has such a strong connection to, spoilers, space whales. It's like, you can't account for that. But I think the reason why we got that teaser of Thrawn, and we kind of talked about it, and then when the Investor Day came out, I was like, oh, I think this is what the Thrawn tease really is. If there is ever a threat that they can have to the New Republic that is prior to the sequel trilogy, but that doesn't necessarily interfere with our understanding of what happened in that time period, it is having Thrawn threaten the return of the Empire.
Right.
And it would explain a lot, because if Moff Gideon was supposed to be the big bad, I'm the guy bringing back the Emperor, I do not think he would have been captured at the end of the spoilers. I'm going to just flag it now. Spoilers for Mandalorian. I don't think Moff Gideon would have been captured at the end if he was supposed to be the big bad of the whole thing.
Well, I don't think he's going to be the big bad of the whole thing, but I think his story continues beyond. Like, I think he's going to be a big major thing in Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, God, there's so much stuff coming.
To kind of go into it, Rangers of the New Republic can have like Moff Gideon or some other Moff be the big bad of the series. Big bad of the series. I did air quotes. Sorry, Chris. But
All good.
The thing that I remember, and I remember you and I laughing about it when Rebels was airing, about how so many people, when Thrawn was first shown, were so upset about how Thrawn wasn't just wiping the board of the Rebels and just driving them like be upset that he was just sitting there watching, and you and I both going, that's Thrawn being Thrawn. He's watching, he's observing, he's learning, he's appreciating, and because of how he operates, he needed to see how they as a team operated in order to create a plan to counter them. And when he did, he almost wiped them out. The big reason he didn't was he had orders to capture some of them alive, and then there was a big Force monster. It's just, every time Thrawn loses, it's legitimately someone else's fault. Or he could not account for it. So
right.
I can see it being like they think the big bad is this like other Imperial warlord, but that guy is working for Thrawn, and Thrawn is just watching. And then the moment he knows he can move forward with the upper hand, he's going to strike.
Right.
So, because I don't think Thrawn is going to play directly into the Mandalorian as much as he will into Ahsoka, but he's like the one character where it makes sense. Because they're talking about it being like the shows are going to intersect. It's going to be kind of like the olden day where you would have a crossover episode. It's like, those are coming back, baby. And it's like, it makes sense if Thrawn is the bad guy, that those would happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a solid guess.
Now, hopefully, I can tweet out in a year or so a minute-long clip about how I was right. let's move on to Mandalorian. And James, just throw up the spoiler thing now. Let's just say from this point on, we've already gone a bit into some spoiler territory, but it's spoilers for Mandalorian chapters 15 and 16. Chris, congratulations. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, that was my get hype. Like, you know, this would be awesome. Uh, 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 I didn't think I'd get that close.
I know. It just was like, we're watching that, and I remember watching the episode, and I was like, I almost sent you a text message, and I'm like, wait, no, Logan, it is 12:45 a.m. Don't text Chris, even though he's probably up. Just don't text Chris. Let him discover this on his own.
No, I knew. I watched it. I think we watched it around the same time. You could have texted me, but the thing was, I tried not to text you because I didn't want to like get into this discussion before we did it on the show because I knew we were doing it this week.
Yeah. So I guess.
And I was like, oh God.
Because I know you and I are going to go off forever about episode 16. I do want to make sure we take time for chapter 15.
So 15 is actually my favorite episode of the season.
Chapter 15, Mayfeld was like one of the characters that I legitimately did not care about at all, or would have been like, yeah, I want to see this guy again after season 1. Like, he's not the one who I thought they would have brought back. And when they were like, when he's like, I need to find this guy in chapter what would have been 14, like I was just like, Mayfeld? Why are they bringing this guy back?
And then he turned into probably one of my favorite characters of the show.
It's the whole Operation Cinder thing. James, are you mic'd up or no?
Slow response? Yes, I am.
Okay. How had you ever heard of Operation Cinder before you watched chapter 15?
Like a lawyer asking a question you already know the answer to? No.
Honestly, I had no idea. Like, I had my suspicion. I did not know. I think this is because I could not legitimately remember if Cinder had come up in other non-novel and non-comic book material. I legit could not remember.
It's in Battlefront.
Yeah, I knew it was in Battlefront. Oh, sorry, or in video game. But I wasn't sure if it had entered like the No,
it's a nerdy thing.
The outside the nerdy zone. The moment they start talking Operation Cinder, I was just like, first off, like, mad props to this season from beginning to end, bringing in characters like Ahsoka is kind of and Bo-Katan are two big characters where it makes sense from like the Clone Wars perspective, from the TV perspective, to bring them in. Bringing up Operation Cinder and bringing in like Cobb Vanth, like,
dude, they brought in the Dark Troopers from Shadows of the Empire, the N64 game.
Right, like they've been bringing in stuff that I did not expect, and I think they deserve a lot of kudos for that. But that Operation Cinder scene in chapter 15 turned Mayfeld from the character I kind of just. Because even throughout the earlier parts of the episode, I was just like, okay, Mayfeld being Mayfeld, you know what? He's a little more endearing this time because I think they're giving him more like interaction with Mando. But I'm still like,
well, I love the conversation they have in the transport vehicle.
Yes, I did.
Where he's talking about it's the same conversation that a lot of times they have, where it's like the two sides of the same coin.
Right.
Conversation.
And
I love the way he puts it, and it's so great.
Yeah, and it made Mayfeld more endearing in that moment, but I was still just like, I'm still not sold on like, okay, I don't hate him anymore, but he's like, whatever. But then the Cinder scene happens, and you could just it's like, knowing what Operation Cinder was, and feeling the hatred come off him, and you just, like, all of a sudden, there's a level of appreciation for that character that I did not expect. because
Yeah.
Cinder is on some level, the destruction of Alderaan is like a big, obvious, oh my god, moment, because the Empire destroyed a planet. Cinder, I almost feels like in some ways worse, because it's so just like, a lot of it was destruction for the sake of destruction.
Yeah.
And to see someone who had been, a loyal soldier of the Empire just feel absolutely betrayed, to the point where that's obviously that must have been the reason why he left. And then when confronted with the person who is responsible for the death of all his comrades, and basically shook him to the point where he had no more faith in the Empire, and basically was like, everyone's stepping on the other guy. Like, that scene made Mayfeld like one of the best characters in the series.
Yeah, I think, and he also wins the episode by shooting the tank at the end. And he has the great line of we all got to do something to sleep at night, right? Like, he has that great,
and you realize like
right after he shoots it, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, the amount of respect I had for him went from non-existent prior to the episode to, I wouldn't necessarily trust him, but I respect him.
Right.
Like, it's...
And then there's a thing too where you're like, at the end of the episode where they let him go, there's a thought of like, before the episode, you would have been like, "Oh, that guy's gonna do some shit."
Yeah.
Where now you're kind of like, you know what? He's not gonna be a problem. Like, you can let him go. He's okay.
He might do some crime, but the truth is,
but he's not gonna he's a good dude. Like, he's not totally fucked up.
Did you watch a lot of Resistance at all? I don't remember if you watched it or not.
Very little. Very little.
I think it's the end of season 1. It's revealed that it's like Captain... Well, the guy who owns the platform, essentially, is an ex-Imperial officer.
Right.
And so, of course, that means, oh my god, he's with the First Order, and he's not. And you realize, and I think this is something like Mayfeld does too, you realize in this episode title, I think, really pushes that idea, the believer. You have someone in the general who was a true believer in what the Empire was doing. Like, full in, we're the good guys because we're bringing order to the galaxy. It doesn't matter who we kill, because for us, order is the end, and the ends are justified by the ends justify the means type thing. And you realize that there are people like Mayfeld they signed up probably for good reason. They could have signed up because they thought it was the right thing to do. And they may have brought the propaganda about Alderaan. Who knows? But when push came to shove, they were, good people. And Cinder, in my thing, the more you dive into Cinder, half of its purpose was to get the people like Mayfeld out. To burn away the conscience.
Sure.
To where you would only have the true believers left.
Sure.
So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we touch on that, because, again,
yeah, it's a great episode.
It's a great episode.
They also have the moment, to me, that was the most, jarring, where they have the heroic Star Wars moment, but it's the Empire.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that was the most interesting scene, I thought, in the whole episode, because it was like, oh man, it feels good, but it's because it's camaraderie is what's important, not so much the side. You're just like, whatever side you're watching is the one you like.
And it gives you the Star Wars fuck yeah moment, and then you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, and I think this episode has done the best job of anything in Star Wars at really pushing home and the idea of everything operates in shades of gray. Yes, there is a light and a dark in the galaxy, but in the moment, a lot of people aren't sitting there, following the code of the Jedi or the code of the Sith. Like, these are people just trying to survive. And it's so bizarre because you have these moments and you're like, yay, success, but oh my God, they're getting cheered by stormtroopers. It is this weird like feeling because you're like, you should hate every person who's wearing that armor and celebrating them. But at the same time, like, you also feel the same thing they do, where it's like the triumph. But it's weird. It's
and the beginning of that scene, it's like you sort of hear what little information the actual troopers are given. It's just like all they hear from like the home base is like maintain course, and which would not have helped at all. You're like, oh, they're kind of really expendable.
Yeah.
And you're like, I feel bad for, these troopers who are sort of like,
it kind of
made it back.
Kind of ties in even to the Cinder conversation. They're all expendable in the eyes of the Empire. Yeah. Like, oh, it was a worthy sacrifice, killing off essentially an entire, God, who knows how many troopers. It's, but yeah, I think lots of kudos to Rick Fumuyawa.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Because I think he wrote and directed it. And it's just, kudos. Also, Din taking off the helmet.
Yeah, I think that was a little whatever for me in 15. I think like
it was definitely more of an impact in 16.
Right.
Emotionally, but it also ties into what was that entire point of that episode of the idea of everyone starts to bend their rules when pushed.
Sure.
And so it felt within the narrative of that episode, it felt relevant to have him take off the helmet because he's willing to break his rules to go find his son.
Right.
And speaking of, chapter 16, he goes to get his son.
Oh my God. This episode.
Chris, I think you cut out again. You went all robot-y. Chris, did we...
From start to finish was just like, there's no way they're going to do this. Oh my God, they're doing this. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. The episode from start to finish just goes like, are they going to do this? Oh my God, they are. That's the entire episode.
I don't know. What point did you realize what I realized? Because I realized like 5 minutes into all of the action sequences. I'm like, wait. And I think a lot of kudos should be given to this because it was not given like, they didn't push this idea. They just let it happen organically. The entire assault team, essentially, because Din is off on his own to try to find his son. So the assault team is all women.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and which is why I really appreciated it because as much as I understand the reason behind like the bit in Endgame, she's not alone, and then you have all of like everyone joining Captain Marvel as they go on the thing, and it's just like, look, it's the women's moment. It always, to me, I feel like whenever you do something like that, it kind of cheapens it.
Sure.
Because it's like, hey, we're doing this so we can like, here you go, women. This is your moment. Whereas in this case, it's like,
it's just natural flow.
It's natural. Right? This is like, these are the people who you want going in because they're the best. And you're not making a deal of they're the best. It doesn't matter. And to where when I realized watching, I'm like, holy crap. I love this.
Yeah.
Because it never...
Dude, one of my favorite moments of the whole assault is when they're walking through the corridor and Bo-Katan and so whatever Sasha Banks' character's name is, drop down underneath the walkway,
Yes.
and you're like, why are they doing that?
And then
Like,
the other squad comes in.
Yeah, the other squad comes from the back, and then I'm watching it. I'm going, oh, they're gonna pop out from the back. Oh, they're gonna pop from under the thing, and they do it, and it's like, yes,
I know.
so
It's
much
just like
yes.
that entire assault.
Can we talk too about Boba Fett versus Sasha Banks and the
Yeah.
amount of shade thrown in that scene?
Oh my god. I love how a couple episodes prior, or everyone's like, okay, Boba Fett's a Mandalorian now, like, because it's been like a point of contention. Are
Sure.
the Fett's Mandalorian? And then it was like,
Django is.
yeah, now we had kind of a thing. Django was Mandalorian, but the Mandalorians don't consider Boba Mandalorian.
No, he's a clone.
He's a clown. I just love the amount
they
of shade getting. You're right. It was such a good, fun sequence of just like tension. It's just like,
Well, Bo-Katan's talking mad shit.
oh, she's throwing so much shit at him.
She's talking because she's the line about the donor,
Yeah.
calling Django his donor, and then there's a line about like, I've heard your voice 1,000 times.
Oh, right. I know.
It's so good.
It's just like, oh man. It just was like, I loved it. It was perfect. Just. And then, of course, they fight, and I love her line, too. As much as she was throwing a lot of shade at Boba, when the fight breaks out, it's like, if we fought this hard against the Empire, we would still have a planet. It's just like, oh, God.
Yeah.
She doesn't like him, but she's still not about to, like, throw down.
Yeah, I love the they both go to the flamethrower at the same time.
I know. It's just like, when two Mandos fight, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. But yeah, let's get to the crux of this whole episode.
Before we get into the, I think I know what you're about to go into, but I think the Darksaber needs to be touched on.
Okay.
The fact that, because there's a lot of people making a point that Sabine gave the Darksaber to Bo-Katan and Rebels, but now, because Din wanted a duel with Gideon, all of a sudden she can't take it. What's your take on that?
I think, obviously it's a little bit of a cop-out because we've seen that she can just accept it before. But I think that there is something to be said that, like, maybe she feels like she has to earn it.
I think,
Like, she doesn't want to just take it.
I think it's not that she couldn't take it from Sabine, because I was wondering about this. Because if you think about it, Sabine never got it from defeating Maul. Neither did Ezra.
Right.
They stole it from him. Then again, if you go into the history of the Darksaber, the Mandalorians stole it from the Jedi. So
Right.
she might have taken that as a no need to duel aspect. Because if you really get down to it, if it is you have to beat the person in a duel, wouldn't that mean Obi-Wan Kenobi's the Mandalorian? Because he beats Maul? Like,
Yeah.
so obviously, I think what it is that because it was stolen from her, she had to be the one to take it back. I don't think it is that she can't take it from someone else. I think that it was taken from her, and that's what makes it for her a point of being, I have to take it back. I have to earn it back, not that she couldn't be given it in the other circumstance. But in the circumstance she's in, she has to earn it back,
right? Right.
Yeah, so she has to earn it back, not that she couldn't be given it in the first place. That was my take on it. Like, I don't see them as mutually exclusive.
My thing is, I think there is a lot of nuance to it, and I think you're probably closer, and like there is a reason, but they just don't have the time to explain it in the way that they brought it up, and so it makes it complicated. Like,
yeah,
I can see them really diving in later on to like the lore and like why and all this. Like, I can see them figuring it out later.
This episode was not the time to do that. This episode, however, was the perfect time to set it up.
Right.
Because it adds tension to the future of the series.
Right.
But
I love the scene when Mando goes, "Fine, I yield."
Yeah, I know. He's just like, just take it. I don't want it. Like, I don't care. Like, and I was wondering about that. Could they fight like a fake duel? Essentially, where
could Mando just fall down and like
Can it just be like,
okay.
because, yeah, we know Maul is able to take the lead because he kills the wielder of the Darksaber in Clone Wars. But who is, like, I don't know if, like, death is clearly not the requirement. It's like whether or not
But it's like it can't be a fake fight because that wouldn't be like honorable.
What if
like,
he
it's
what
sort
if
of like,
what if Mando doesn't say it's a fake fight? What if
Yeah.
Mando just goes and just falls down?
like you just have to like convince her that you tried your hardest and you lost,
Yeah.
and not that you like gave it away. Because I don't think I don't think it counts.
Yeah.
Just don't tell her.
Hey, everyone who's Mandalorian, look the other way. Actually, everyone, look the other way. All right, let's fight. Ah! She beat me. Here's the Darksaber. I wonder if it's a case of, like, if he just gave it to her and he's still alive, like, everyone will ask questions. And I wonder how fractured the Mandalorians are. We don't know. Like, there's so many questions about Mandalore. Like, the last time we had, like, clear answers about the state of Mandalore is pre-Alderaan. Like,
Yeah.
it's so there's a whole lot of questions there, and this is probably going to be tied into it. Why can't she take the Darksaber? What's going on? But now let's finally dive into the thing I thought I never wanted to happen in The Mandalorian, but my God, I was crying.
Yeah. So okay, I have one complaint. Out of this entire sequence, I have one complaint,
What is it?
and it's I wish they didn't do the X-wing thing, because as soon as they go one X-wing, great, that's a lot of help. You know what's happening.
I disagree.
As soon as they go lone X-wing, there's only one X-wing that flies alone.
Red 5.
That's it.
I disagree.
You know exactly what's happening as soon as they go, oh, the one X-wing.
I know it's
As soon as they show the X-wing, you know what it is.
I'm going to disagree only because the moment that happened, because you and I had also been talking about the idea of watch as they all get cornered and they get saved by a Jedi.
Yeah.
The moment all this stuff was happening with the Dark Troopers, I was just like, oh, Chris is right. We're going to get this moment with the Jedi.
Yeah.
So maybe I was a little set for that. But the moment that single X-Wing comes in, you see it, you hear it, they acknowledge it. Like, you can't tell me that a little bit of you just kind of, like, got excited and you just started to be like, oh, like, I got excited.
Oh, I got excited, but, like, to me, I would have been more excited if they didn't do that. They just said, there's a ship landing in the whatever. And then all you see is the lightsaber on the cameras.
Yeah.
Or, like, you show everything else, right? You don't know that it's an X-wing. You don't know. You just know that a Jedi is on board. And then you go, oh, it's green. Who's and you go through the list in your head of, like, okay, who has a green lightsaber? Blah, blah, blah. Ezra, whatever. And then you go through the list, and then you're like, okay. And then you see the black glove, and you go, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
I think that's
and then
fair.
He continues through, right? But the thing is, like, as soon as you see the X-wing, you know it's Luke.
You know it's Luke.
As soon as you see it, you're like, I know who this is.
I was thinking about this more, and I realized, because you and I had been talking, like, oh, it might be Ezra, it might be all these other people. I realized after watching the episode, if they were going to have a Jedi show up, they really had no option but Luke, if you think about it.
It makes the most sense.
It makes the most sense within the story, but at the same time, okay, we have 10 minutes left in the episode. I am going to introduce another Jedi to you that you have no clue who they are. Fans know who this person is, but you don't. And I don't have enough time to actually explain who they are. There was really no option but Luke. To where even if they shot it in that way you described, like, it wouldn't have been like Cal Kestis. It would not have been Ezra. It would have been Luke.
Yeah, I think the thing with me with Luke is I just didn't think they'd have the balls
I know. I didn't think they had the
to
balls
like,
either.
because like bringing in Luke, like I was trying to tell my dad, like when you think of Star Wars heroes, like Luke is at the top of that list,
Yes.
and so you never want to like potentially mess it up or like cheapen a character or any, like okay, it makes total sense story wise, and like it's just like bringing a character like that takes a lot of guts
Yeah, and it takes a
to
lot of
execute
guts.
correctly.
And I honestly, for being someone who wanted Mandalorian to not touch other aspects of Star Wars too much, because I wanted it to stand on its own 2 feet.
Standalone. Yeah,
To be like,
I was with you. We had that. We had these concerns at the beginning of the season.
Watching this episode wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
I had no complaint about it being Luke. If you had told me,
No, not at all.
When we were first talking about episode 1, that Luke was going to be in the last episode, I would have been pissed. Because it's like, guys, you can't always have a Skywalker show up. But they established it enough. They set up enough to when Luke showed up, it made sense within the story. In fact, the way I thought about it was ironically thinking of like the Old Republic MMO, where you're the Jedi Knight, you get a mission to save these people who are under siege. So you fight your way through the thing, and then you get to the cutscene where they're like, oh, thank you. We weren't sure how we were going to survive. And I'm like, oh, Mando and his team are the people going, thank you. We weren't sure how we were going to survive. For Luke, this is just another side quest.
Yeah. Like, again, Luke's just gathering students at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it makes total sense that he would be the one answering the call and going like, oh yeah, I'll save this Force sensitive kid. Like, whatever.
Yeah, it's
Luke's driving around Night City trying to figure out how to up his level. Like,
yeah, like I said on Twitter, I keep rewatching the last like 10, 12 minutes of this episode over and over.
Yeah, so the thing that's great too, and it's like the perfect example of this episode to me was, do they need to bring R2D2 into this episode? No. Does it make it 100 times cooler that they brought R2D2 into this episode? Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, what? And so the thing is, like, I would have. It's so great that he just like rolls in, and it's totally unexpected. Because you're freaking out about Luke, right? You're like, oh my god, it's Luke, and then they just have him roll in, and you're like, oh yeah, he's in the X-wing.
Yeah.
He's already there.
He's Luke's constant companion. The friend we all wish we had. R2D2. It's... Also, I am half tempted to see if I can't pull it together myself to do this, but I really want there to be like a side-by-side of Luke in the hallway and Vader in the hallway from Rogue One.
Oh, those are already done.
Oh, is it done? Good. I need to look into that because I'm so glad Luke got his own hallway scene.
So when you watch them, it's very clear that Luke's hallway scene was inspired by the Vader one.
Yeah,
because they're using very similar moves, and the movements that they're using line up almost perfectly of like shot for shot of like, oh, this is clearly what they were going for.
Yeah, I remember watching it. Like even on my first watch through, I'm like, oh shit, this is his Vader hallway sequence.
Yeah, and it's again, it's the first time in live action that we're seeing Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, like peak of his powers, Luke Skywalker. And it's like, oh, cool. Like when he crushes the last Dark Trooper at the end, you just go, oh shit! Like this is not the Luke Skywalker that we know from Return of the Jedi.
This is Luke at his peak, and it's also because I was thinking about that too, because I could already hear in the back of my head people being like, "Why? How could the Jedi get beaten in the Clone Wars?" And it's just like, Luke is one of the most powerful Jedi who have ever lived. And this was just one squadron of Dark Troopers, not an army. Anakin could have done the same thing. It reminded me of, to go into Clone Wars a bit, in one of the season 6 episodes, when they're trying to recapture Tup. I think it's like the first episode of season 5 or season 6. And Anakin is basically thinking about jumping into the hangar to like wipe out all the droids, and Rex makes the comment of like, I don't think we should, and Anakin's like, what, you don't think I could do it? He's like, it's not that I don't think you could pull it off, it's that I'm not sure I'll survive. And I'm just like, watching the sequence, I thought the same thing, where it's just like, Anakin could have done the same thing. Anakin could have done the same thing. Obi-Wan probably could have done the same thing.
I don't.
Tiplar? Like no.
It's not like super impressive that he can do it, because we've seen a Jedi take out waves of troopers, on their own. Like that's not super impressive, but it's just the idea of like, it's the whole mythicism around it of like what the show set up. Like if this would have been another scene in like a Star Wars movie, but in a show where we haven't really gotten a lot of Jedi and Force stuff, and the expectation is like, oh, these Dark Troopers are like hard.
Then you basically beat the crap out of Mando.
Yeah,
and that was just one
head punched against a wall.
Yeah,
for a good 30 seconds. I think it was a little excessive. They needed to show the power of the Dark Troopers. I get it, but like, fuck, he punches him for like 30 seconds, non-stop, and you're like, Jesus.
Yeah, and then for Luke, it's like nothing.
Yeah.
I
love too that once he literally waits at the door. He doesn't cut the door open.
I know.
He just tells Grogu to open the door, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even he doesn't do anything. And then when he gets inside, he has all these people pointing guns at him. And he just calmly puts away his lightsaber.
He's like, never puts it up in a defensive position. It's on but down. It's just like.
And he turns it off. He puts it on his belt, and you're like, oh, he has no fear right now.
I was actually kind of surprised that Cara Dune didn't say his name.
Recognize?
Yeah.
Right.
That was like the one thing that caught me, that I was kind of half expecting, was just like a line of her being like, Luke. Just like, even though she would never have met him, there's no way in hell that she didn't know who he was.
Well, my thing goes to... my dad brought this up too, of like, shouldn't they recognize him or whatever? And my thing is like, well, do you know the soldier that shot Osama bin Laden?
True.
Like, is that something that you know? And my dad was like, no. And I was like, yeah, like, if she's just another soldier, if she's just like in there, and she left the Republic, or like the Resistance, like what, what, like, do you know?
Fair.
Someone killed the Empire. Oh, someone killed the Emperor. Cool. Who? I don't fucking know. Some guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's fair.
It's not a huge deal, or it's just there's thousands, millions of people. Like, no one's gonna really pay attention unless you're like really close to it, but she's not. So
also, another thing I wanted to point out is Bo-Katan had, of course, sent Din off to meet Ahsoka, but like the shock and kind of almost reverence in her voice when she goes, a Jedi, when she's watching the camera feed.
Yeah, another one.
Like, just like she wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Well, because in her mind, the only one left is like Ahsoka Tano.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was there during Order 66. She knows.
Yeah. Like, she knows. Obviously, at some point, her and Ahsoka have met up again. And then, at the same time, like, I don't remember, did Bo-Katan have any interaction with Ezra? Or was it just Sabine? I think it was just Sabine. So she would not have necessarily been prepped for the idea that there were other Jedi.
Yeah.
And I just loved her delivery there, because it's just like shock.
Yeah, and it's the thing too of like Bo-Katan has so much experience with. I'm glad that Luke doesn't give his name, right?
Yeah.
Because if Luke goes like, if Mando goes, "Are you a Jedi?" He goes, "Yes, I'm Luke Skywalker." Bo-Katan would have flipped her shit because she'd be
Yeah, because
like,
she would have known the name Skywalker.
right, she would have flipped her shit, and so that's like a really good foresight on them not to not to have Luke be like, "I'm Luke Skywalker," and I
Well,
can rescue you.
I don't
Um,
know if. I guess the question is, would she have been like,
James caught that one.
yeah, I I wonder how she would have handled that though, because the other thing too is I could see her peppering him with questions about like how, because the identity of Vader was a state secret.
Right. Well,
Um,
like she doesn't know. She has
yeah.
no idea that. Yeah.
So she would have
So,
just known
the,
him, like Anakin Skywalker as the Jedi General who died. Um,
yeah.
because in Star Wars canon, it's not public knowledge until like what 5 years before Force Awakens that Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. Um,
Something like that. But then, even then, like public knowledge, you can't really like how widespread is that
yeah.
knowledge? You know what I'm saying? And like at that point, who knows who Anakin Skywalker is? Like at what point are people still alive
Well,
that
where
understand
it's
like the significance of that?
where it came to be a problem, it wasn't that Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader. It was that Darth Vader was Leia's father. It created a huge political
Right.
problem. In not that it was just one of those. For most people, it's probably a blip on the radar, but it basically ended Leia's political career.
Right.
Read Bloodlines because Claudia Gray is fantastic. But yeah, no, I was really glad he didn't say his name. He's just the Jedi, and they're all in shock. And he takes Grogu, and Mando takes the helmet off. I'm crying.
That was
Oh my
one of the
god!
most touching things.
Like, it's I in that sequence. We talked briefly about how we think Queen's Gambit is like almost at this point a shoe-in for Emmy.
Right.
If Pedro Pascal doesn't at least get a nom as Mando for just that
Yeah.
scene, I'm pissed.
The award shows hate Star Wars.
They do. But
like the thing about that scene that I always laugh about is like, fuck, does Grogu know it's a helmet? What if Grogu's like, oh my god, your head comes off?
well, he'd been seeing him with the soup earlier. Like Grogu knows it's a helmet.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. I'm just imagining like in that touching moment, Grogu's like, holy shit,
oh god,
your
you
head
took off your
comes
skin. It's so crazy the amount of emotion that he's able to portray, and he's acting against a puppet.
Yeah.
Like
that scene gets me so hard.
it's such a so well done. And that's the reason why I keep rewatching those last 12 minutes is that you get the high of holy shit, it's Luke. But at the same time, you get this really just strong emotional moment between Din and Grogu.
Yeah.
And
Also, again, we've talked about it before. The show's doing such a great job with its use of themes and subtle music.
the Force theme, the one time the Force theme is in the movie, it is right when Luke, and I'm just like, good God.
You're like, oh my God.
They like seriously.
It gets me every time.
Me too. It's like this season is fantastic from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Season 1 did get a best series nomination. I would be shocked if this one doesn't get a series nomination too. I don't think
It's
it
not
will
going to
be
be Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit, but my God, Pedro Pascal deserves an Emmy.
Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy how much he's been able to convey with that character without showing his face. To when he does show his face, how much he's able to tell.
Yeah, shoutouts to him and his stunt team too.
Exactly.
Because there's like 3 people that play.
Because there's like 3 people there.
But,
it's
yeah,
like
they all do fantastic.
They do such a fantastic job.
What was I gonna say? Oh, Disney Gallery starts up on Christmas.
I did not know that. I guess that's my Christmas present from Disney, is Soul with a side of Disney Gallery.
Yeah, so first episode of Disney Gallery goes up, and they're gonna do it again, like weekly, like they have been doing.
Good. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah, episode 16 was just holy crap.
Yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah.
I will say that the CG wasn't the best, but like whatever, I don't really care.
Agreed. Agreed. But
like I'm not like it's too cool not to. It's too cool to care about that right now.
But how about that stealth announcement at the very end?
Yeah, so I'm still. Are they talking about book in terms of this is season 3 and like now Boba becomes the Mandalorian, or is that its own show?
Personal theory is that it's its own show. Evidently, someone pointed this out to me. Kathy Kennedy during Disney Investor Day described the next installment of The Mandalorian, not the next season of The Mandalorian story. So I have a feeling that it is a story. I think it's a standalone Boba Fett story. I do not think it's Mandalorian
because
season
next
3.
Season of The Mandalorian is supposed to come out in December as well.
And that's where they were saying the thing is that she never said it was season 3, but the next installment of Mandalorian was coming out in December. And I think that's how they were playing it, is because this is very much a Mandalorian story when it comes to Boba Fett in terms of like Mandalorian as the people, not necessarily the Mandalorian, the TV show. I think that was them being very coy about the fact that they're doing a standalone Boba Fett piece that doesn't continue Din Djarin's story.
Because I could see it where like a lot like Avatar, right? Like Avatar, where first 2 seasons are the Book of Din.
Mm-hmm.
And season 3 and maybe 4 are the Book of Boba Fett. And then maybe 5 and 6 are the Book of Bo-Katan, where she's trying to reconnect Mandalore, right? Like, I could see all of that kind of being the flow of the show.
Yeah, that could work. Because, and that's, I think, an important thing, too. And this is something, until they called it the Book of Boba Fett, I never really keyed in. Like, I always liked the fact that they called them chapters. But the moment they called it the Book of Boba Fett, I was like, oh, this is chapters. Oh.
Right. Like I could see it where season 3 starts and it's chapter 1.
Yes, exactly.
And it's the Book of Boba Fett, right? Like, so you have the first 16 chapters of Din, and then now it restarts over to
so I think it's going to be the Mandalorian, and then they're going to call this the Book of Boba Fett. I don't know if they're going to put the Mandalorian in front of it. I kind of hope they don't. I can see them doing that in like marketing material, but I don't see them doing it in like the show itself.
I mean, I would prefer, honestly, because I like Din as a character, and I think like it's more fun to follow him around than, as much as I love Boba Fett, I think Din is more fun to follow around.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I'm excited that we're gonna get more Fennec Shand because I think that character is really cool.
I know, I am too. There was a 11.
She's also gonna be in Bad Batch. So.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw 1138, which is a website that does like deep dives into Star Wars, but like more from like a analytical perspective rather than like let's just talk about Star Wars. The guy who runs their Twitter joked the Fennec Shand expanded universe.
Yeah,
and I was like, I'm okay with this. I'm all for more Min Na Wen.
I think I'm pretty sure she's voicing the Bad Batch character too.
I think she is. I can't see her not. Like, she's done voice work before. She's Mulan.
She's Mulan, yeah.
It's
Also, I finally watched Mulan.
How was it? I haven't watched it
And
yet.
it's okay.
It's okay.
I don't think it's as bad as what people were saying. I don't think it's as good as some people were saying. It's in the middle. It's okay.
Yeah, I'll
But
end up
she's in
watching
it.
it. I heard
She
that.
has a cameo in it,
I heard that she had a cameo.
which
So
is kind of, yeah. It took me out of the scene entirely because it's towards the end of the movie, and so you're like into the movie, and then all of a sudden you go, oh shit,
wait,
it's
it's me,
Ming
no
Na Wen.
Wen.
And then you just watch her the whole time, and you're like, and she walks away, and you're like, wait, what'd she just say? Hold
But
on, what was
here's
that whole scene?
I remember when we were talking about season 1 about you don't introduce Ming Na Wen into a story like this and not have plans for her. Because
Yeah.
she's one of those actresses that is just solid.
Well, she just like she's solid. She's charismatic on screen.
Yeah, like
and,
she's just one of the, like
you just like her.
yeah, you just like her. She's not a talent you want to do on a one and done. Like she's one you would want to
Yeah.
bring in, and like with the Book of Boba Fett too, I'm just like I'm all for it. Like I'm really glad they brought her in. It's like
Yeah.
think about
I
Ming Na
love that
Wen
she-
is
I
a
love
Disney
she's-
princess. She is a Marvel Cinematic Universe character, and she's a Star Wars character. Like, what more
She's
can
the
you?
only one. She's the only one to do all three. By the
And
way.
you know what? It's great. She's great.
Yeah, the thing that I was laughing at was when she sits on the side of the throne, like your typical prince slave girl pose, but she's
Got the gun
not
and the
slave girl.
booze.
She's like she has the gun. Yeah, she has the gun and like the booze, and you're like, oh, she's the slave girl, but she's not the slave girl. She's the
Yeah.
she's the bodyguard.
God. But I guess we're gonna get some answers into what happened on Tatooine after Jabba died.
I would love for the Boba Fett thing to be like him overtaking this Tatooine underworld.
Yeah. I wonder how much of the Book of Boba Fett is going to be set before or after this.
Oh, I would say they pick up right now and
Yeah,
okay,
like
Boba,
that's my expectation, but I'm wondering if we're going to get some.
How do you run this empire?
Yeah. Because there are questions about why didn't he go after Cobb Vanth's armor? What was his beef with Bib Fortuna? Like there are questions I now want answered.
Does he get 300 pounds every year? Who knows?
Who knows? Why haven't the Hutts retaken over Tatooine? Like, what's going on?
We'll see.
I have questions, and I have to wait a year for answers. Damn it.
Yeah.
But there's so much Star Wars coming up. Like, we're gonna sometime next year we're gonna have to sit down and start talking about High Republic. It's going and then we're gonna have Marvel stuff. 2021 is gonna just be nonstop crazy.
And it's something that honestly we need after this year. I'm hopeful again for a good year.
Yeah. But man, I want to rewatch Mando and cry. Yeah, that does it for me. You got anything else there, Chris?
No, I'm good. That was there's a lot to go over, but I'm excited.
Like, again, kudos to everyone, actors, crew, creatives, everyone on the Mandalorian team for giving us a wild ride. Can't wait for more. With that,
Yep.
Everyone, please like, share, subscribe, do all the fun things you're supposed to do on the interwebs to make us big, rich, famous, and all that fun stuff. Rich, famous, not required. So, everyone, though, please stay safe, stay at home, wear your mask. We will see you next year.
Happy holidays.